It may be, Chunda, that wanderers of other sects might say, the ascetics who follow the Sakyan are addicted to a life of devotion to pleasure. If so, they should be asked, what kind of a life of devotion to pleasure, friend? For such a life can take many forms. There are, Chunda, 4 kinds of life devoted to pleasure which are low, vulgar, worldly, ignoble, and not conducive to welfare, not leading to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to tranquility, to realization, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What are they? Firstly, a foolish person takes pleasure and delight in killing living beings. Secondly, someone takes pleasure and delight in taking what is not given. Thirdly, someone takes pleasure and delight in telling lies. Fourthly, someone gives himself up to the indulgence in and enjoyment of the pleasures of the 5 senses. These are the 4 kinds of life devoted to pleasure which are low, vulgar, not leading to disenchantment, to enlightenment, to nibbana. And it may be that those of other sects might say, are the followers of the Sakyan given to these 4 forms of pleasure seeking? They should be told, no, for they would not be speaking correctly about you. They would be slandering you with false and untrue statements. There are, Chunda, these 4 kinds of life devoted to pleasure, which are entirely conducive to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to tranquility, to realization, to enlightenment, to nibbana. What are they? Firstly, a monk, detached from all sense desires, detached from unwholesome mental states, enters and remains in the first jhana, which is with thinking, which is with thought directed and sustained, born of detachment, filled with delight and happiness, and with the subsiding of thought directed and sustained, by gaining inner tranquility and oneness of mind, he enters and remains in the second jhana, which is without thought directed and sustained, born of concentration, filled with delight and happiness. Again, with the fading of delight, remaining imperturbable, mindful and clearly aware, he experiences in himself that joy of which the noble ones say, happy is he who dwells with equanimity and mindfulness. He enters and remains in the third jhana. Again, having given up pleasure and pain, and with the disappearance of former gladness and sadness, he enters and remains in the fourth jhana, which is beyond pleasure and pain, and with utter purity of equanimity and mindfulness. There are these are the 4 kinds of life devoted to pleasure, which are entirely conducive to disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to tranquility, to realization, to enlightenment, to nibbana. So if wanderers from other sects should say that the followers of the Sakyan are addicted to these 4 forms of pleasure seeking, they should be told, yes, for they would be speaking correctly about you. They would not be slandering you with false or untrue statements. Then such wanderers might ask, well then, those who are given to these 4 forms of pleasure seeking, how many fruits, how many benefits can they expect? And you should reply, they can expect 4 fruits, 4 benefits. What are they? The first is when a monk, by the destruction of 3 fetters, has become a stream winner, sotapanna, no more subject to rebirth in lower worlds, firmly established, destined for full enlightenment. The second is when a monk, by the complete destruction of 3 fetters and the reduction of greed, hatred and delusion, has become a once returner, sakadagamin, and having returned once more to this world, will put an end to suffering. The third is when a monk, by the complete destruction of the 5 lower fetters, has been spontaneously reborn, and there will reach nibbana without returning from that world. That's the anagamin. The fourth is when a monk, by the destruction of the asavas in this very life, has by his own knowledge and realization attained to arahantship, to the liberation by mind and liberation by wisdom. Such are the 4 fruits and 4 benefits that one given to these 4 forms of pleasure seeking can expect. Stop here for a moment. So here the Buddha says that his disciples are not addicted to worldly pleasures, which refers to the pleasure from killing taking what is not given, lying, and pleasures of the senses. But there are another 4 kinds of pleasures which are conducive to enlightenment, to Nibbana. That is the first jhana, second jhana, third jhana, and fourth jhana. And Buddha here says that the sons of the Sakyan, that means the Buddhist monks, are addicted to the 4 forms of pleasure seeking. So why does the Buddha say his disciples are addicted to these 4 forms of pleasure seeking? The Buddha says because there are 4 good fruits, benefits. What are the 4? Attaining the 4 stages of Aryahood, the 4 fruits, Sotapanna, Sakadagamin, Anagamin, and Arahanthood. So this contradicts some of these monks who teach that jhana is not good, jhana is not beneficial, there is no mindfulness in jhana. Here the Buddha says he not only allows his monks to practice the jhanas, but he even encourages them to become addicted to these jhanas because they have 4 benefits, the 4 Aryan fruits. Then such wanderers might say, the doctrines of the Sakyan sons are not well founded. They should be told, friend, the Lord who knows and sees has taught and proclaimed to his disciples principles which are not to be transgressed as long as life shall last. Just like a locking post or an iron post which is deep based, well planted, and unshakable, immovable, are these doctrines he has taught. And any monk who is an arahant, whose asavas are destroyed, who has lived the life, done what was to be done, laid down the burden, gained the true goal, who has completely destroyed the fetter of being or becoming, and is liberated by supreme insight, is incapable of doing 9 things. 1. Is incapable of deliberately taking the life of a living being. 2. He is incapable of taking what is not given so as to constitute theft. 3. He is incapable of sexual intercourse. 4. He is incapable of telling a deliberate lie. 5. He is incapable of storing up goods for sensual indulgence as he did formerly in the household life. 6. He is incapable of acting wrongly through attachment. 7. He is incapable of acting wrongly through hatred. 8. He is incapable of acting wrongly through folly. 9. He is incapable of acting wrongly through fear. These are the 9 things which an arahant, whose asavas are destroyed, cannot do. Stop here for a moment. So here it's very clear, an arahant is not capable of killing, of taking what is not given, sexual intercourse, lying, storing up goods for sensual indulgence, and acting wrongly. In the Vinaya books, the arahant is said to be incapable of doing anything wrong. Why? Because he has mindfulness 24 hours a day. Every second of the day and night, the arahant is mindful. It's not like us. Most of us, when we go to sleep, we are not mindful. We are not. So the arahant, even when he takes his rest, he is still mindful. That's one thing. Secondly, the important thing here, he's not capable. He's not given to sexual intercourse. This contradicts some of the Mahayana teachings, especially like in the Vajrayana. They say some of the enlightened beings can indulge in this, what they call Tantric Buddhism, or Tantra. This Tantra is one of the secret teachings that the disciple can make love to the master, can make love to the disciple. And they say they use this to attain enlightenment. This is sheer folly, sheer contradiction of the Buddha's teachings. Even during the Buddha's time, they had this kind of practice. And there were some external ascetics because they were naked ascetics, and they had male and female. So when they look at each other's bodies, then lust arose. And they say there's nothing wrong indulging in these sensual pleasures. They don't harm anybody. The Buddha said it is foolishness. Even though they don't harm anybody, they harm themselves. So the Buddha says it's not possible to engage in sexual intercourse without lust. Not possible. Whereas in the Mahayana, some of these Mahayana teachings, they say the aim is to indulge in it without lust, but it's simply not possible. Or such wanderers might say, as regards past times, the ascetic Gautama displays boundless knowledge and insight, but not about the future, as to what will be and how it will be. That would be to suppose that knowledge and insight about one thing are to be produced by knowledge and insight about something else, as fools imagine. As regards the past, the Tathagata has knowledge of past lives. He can remember as far back as he wishes. As for the future, this knowledge, born of enlightenment, arises in him. This is the last birth. There will be no more becoming. If the past refers to what is not factual, to fables, to what is not of advantage, the Tathagata makes no reply. If it refers to what is factual, not fabulous, but which is not of advantage, the Tathagata makes no reply. But if the past refers to what is factual, not fabulous, and which is of advantage, then the Tathagata knows the right time to reply. The same applies to the future and the present. Therefore, Chunda, the Tathagata is called the one who declares the time, the fact, the advantage, the Dhamma and the Vinaya. That is why he is called Tathagata. Stop here for a moment. So here you see, the Buddha says he can recall the past lives as far back as he wishes. In other words, there's no limit. And then if you ask him about the past, even if it's something that is not factual, he won't answer. And if it's not, if it is factual, but it's not advantageous, also he won't answer. Only if it is factual and it is advantageous. Advantageous means it is of use to the spiritual life. It will help somebody on the spiritual path. Then only he will reply. Similarly, concerning the future and the present. Chunda, whatever in this world, with its devas and maras and brahmas, with its ascetics and brahmins, its princes and people, is seen by people, heard, sensed, cognized, whatever was ever achieved, sought after, or mentally pondered upon, all that has been fully understood by the Tathagata. That is why he is called Tathagata. Between the night in which the Tathagata gains supreme enlightenment, Chunda, and the night in which he attains the Nibbana element without remainder, whatever he proclaims, says or explains is so, and not otherwise. That is why he is called Tathagata. And of this world with its devas and maras and brahmas, with its ascetics and brahmins, its princes and people, the Tathagata is the unvanquished conqueror, the seer and ruler of all. That is why he is called Tathagata. So here you notice the Buddha says that whatever he says is factual. So sometimes you read certain books, you see the Buddha says something here, and then you read some other books, they say the Buddha says the opposite. Then two of them cannot be the truth. Only one of them must be the truth. So you have to investigate. For example, there's some contradiction between Mahayana teachings and Theravada early suttas. There's some contradiction between the Abhidhamma and the early suttas. There's some contradiction between the Visuddhimagga and the early suttas. There's some contradiction between some things in the commentary and the suttas. So you have to investigate and find out. Or such wanderers might say, does the Tathagata exist after death? Is that true and any other view foolish? They should be told, friend, this has not been revealed by the Lord. Or does the Tathagata not exist after death? Or does he both exist and not exist after death? Does he neither exist nor not exist after death? They should be told, friend, this has not been revealed by the Lord. Then they may say, why has the ascetic Gautama not revealed this? They should be told, friend, this is not conducive to welfare, or to Dhamma, or to the higher holy life, or to disenchantment, dispassion, cessation, tranquility, realization, enlightenment, nibbana. That is why the Lord has not revealed it. Or they may say, well, friend, what has the ascetic Gautama revealed? They should be told, this is suffering, has been declared by the Lord. This is the arising of suffering. This is the cessation of suffering. This is the path leading to the cessation of suffering. These have been declared by the Lord. Then they may say, why has this been declared by the ascetic Gautama? They should be told, friend, this is conducive to welfare, to Dhamma, to the higher holy life, perfect disenchantment, to dispassion, to cessation, to tranquility, to realization, to enlightenment, to nibbana. That is why the Lord has revealed it. Stop here for a moment. So if people ask the Buddha certain things that do not pertain to the Dhamma, does not help us to end suffering, the Buddha will keep quiet. He won't answer. Only if it has something to do with the Dhamma, with the Four Noble Truths, the ending of the round of rebirths, then the Buddha will answer. Chunda, those bases of speculation about the beginnings of things which I have explained to you as they should be explained, should I now explain to you as they should not be explained? And likewise about the future, what are the speculations about the past? There are ascetics and Brahmins who say and declare, the self and the world are eternal. This is true and any other view is erroneous. The self and the world are not eternal. The self and the world are both eternal and not eternal. The self and the world are neither eternal nor not eternal. The self and the world are self-created. They are created by another. They are both self-created and created by another. They are neither self-created nor created by another, but have arisen by chance, and similarly with regard to pleasure and pain. Now, Chunda, I go to those ascetics and Brahmins who hold any of these views, and if being asked, they confirm that they do hold such views, I do not admit their claims. Why not? Because, Chunda, different beings hold different opinions on such matters, nor do I consider such theories equal to my own, still less superior. I am the superior in regard to the higher exposition. As for those bases of speculation about the beginning of things which I have explained to you as they should be explained, why should I now explain them to you as they should not be explained? And what about those speculators about the future? There are some ascetics and Brahmins who say the self after death is material and healthy, or immaterial, or both, or neither. The self is conscious after death, or unconscious, or both, or neither. The self perishes, is destroyed, ceases to be after death. This is true and any other view is erroneous. Now, Chunda, I go to those ascetics and Brahmins who hold any of these views, and if, being asked, they confirm that they do hold such views, I do not admit their claims. Why not? Because, Chunda, different beings hold different opinions on such matters, nor do I consider such theories equal to my own, still less superior. I am the superior in regard to the higher exposition. As for those bases of speculation about the future, which I have explained to you as they should be explained, why should I now explain them to you as they should not be explained? And Chunda, for the destruction of all such views about the past, future, for transcending them, I have taught and laid down the 4 intense states of mindfulness. What are the 4? Here, Chunda, a monk dwells contemplating body in the body, ardent, clearly aware and mindful, having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. He dwells contemplating feelings in feelings, mind in mind, Dhamma in Dhamma, ardent, clearly aware and mindful. having put aside hankering and fretting for the world. That is how, Chunda, for the destruction of such views about the past and future, and for transcending them, I have taught and laid down the 4 intense states of mindfulness. During this time, the Venerable Upavana was standing behind the Lord, fanning him, and he said, "It is wonderful, Lord. It is marvelous. Lord, this exposition of Dhamma is delightful, highly delightful. Lord, what is the name of this discourse?" And the Buddha said, "Well, Upavana, you can remember it as the delightful discourse." Thus the Lord spoke, and the Venerable Upavana rejoiced and was delighted with his words. That's the end of the sutta. You see this last part, the Buddha says, to transcend all the views about the past, present and the future, he has taught the 4 intense states of mindfulness. Why? Because these 4 intense states of mindfulness means to put your mindfulness on one object, unremitting mindfulness on one object. So if you put your attention only on one object all the time, how can you have views about this present and future and past and all these things? So if you continue that unremitting mindfulness on one object, it must end up with one-pointedness of mind, which is the jhanas. And then when a person attains the jhanas, all the thinking, all the views will automatically stop. All these views comes from too much thinking. Because our mind has a tendency to proliferate, papancha, this tendency to proliferate in an undisciplined mind, untrained mind. Okay, anything to discuss?
You said that some people teach that you can reach jhana by jhana, that jhana is that thing. What is the idea of reaching nibbana otherwise? Is the only people teach something is something else?
Can you repeat the question? I heard you say some people say can reach nibbana without jhana.
Yeah, they say that jhana, once you involve jhana, what is their idea of reaching nibbana otherwise? Where do they read that out of the sutta?
They teach that you don't need jhana to attain nibbana. They say you cultivate wisdom. That is the path of pure vipassana. And that is not what the Buddha says. As I mentioned the other day, they are making use of these commentaries which were written several hundred years after the Buddha passed away by later monks. These later monks, they did not practice and attain the jhanas. So they think that the jhanas are not necessary. They think they can attain wisdom just by contemplation. Actually, the word vipassana means contemplation. But they have sometimes changed it to insight. So they say the vipassana meditation is the meditation that gives you insight, that gives you wisdom. But in the Buddha's teachings, without jhana, there's no higher wisdom. Does that answer your question?
Somewhere enjoying himself as a day one, people want to worship him and the
want to worship who? Or Maitreya Buddha. I think this is sheer foolishness lah. It's just like some people talk about the Pure Land. They want to be reborn in the Pure Land to be with the Amitabha Buddha. So there are some people who want to be with Amitabha Buddha, some people want to be with Maitreya Buddha. But if they are really Buddhas and you are reborn either with Amitabha Buddha or Maitreya Buddha, the teaching that you are going to get is exactly what our Sakyamuni Buddha is teaching. So there is no point, it's just sheer foolishness, using the mind too much. Because of proliferation of mind, and they start thinking, good to be born with that Buddha and this Buddha and all that. Wait a while.
I read some comments by some old. They were not able to attain Nirvana this life, so they want to get confused and material development. Then they want to realistic aspiration of how to be able to be born with the Sakama of material development.
I think this is wishful thinking to be reborn with Maitreya Buddha. If you have not met Maitreya Buddha in the past, you don't have strong affinity with Maitreya Buddha, how can you be reborn with him? Right? So what is important is the Dhamma is here with us. So make use of the Dhamma and try to at least attain some stage of Aryahood. If you can attain some stage of Aryahood, you have entered the stream that will flow towards Nibbana. You're sure of enlightenment. Even with the lowest Aryan stage, which is Sotapanna, within 7 lifetimes, after that, maximum of 7 lifetimes, a person will become enlightened. That is guaranteed by the Buddha, stated by the Buddha. So that being the case, it doesn't matter where you are reborn, who you are reborn with. Once you are an Arya, either you will meet the Dhamma again, or if you don't meet the Dhamma, you will strive until you can remember your past lives, like our Buddha Sakyamuni. When he was in his last life, as Siddhartha Gautama, there was no Buddha Dhamma in the world. And yet, he just knew that he has to strive. So he strove so hard until he could remember his past lives. And then all the Dhamma came back to him. What is important is the Dhamma. It's not the person that is important. The Dhamma is important. So whether we recall the Dhamma of Buddha Sakyamuni or Buddha Kassapa or Buddha Kona Gamana or Buddha Kakusanda or some other Buddha, it doesn't matter which Buddha. What is important is the Dhamma. So it is not important to meet the Buddha in person. What is important is to meet the Dhamma. Meet the Dhamma. Then, and once you're an Arya, you will either meet the Dhamma or you will recall the Dhamma. Somehow you will enter Nibbana. That is important. Who you meet is not important. It's only worldly thinking. When you love somebody, you think you want to meet him again or her again in the future. That is pure the flow of asavas, these uncontrolled mental outflows, thinking too much.
More question: how do we sustain our energy drive? Just to see.
Sustain what?
How do we keep ourselves going? Keep ourselves motivated to stay close to Dhamma. Because I am one of those people who have been living out in Dhamma circle. We also see in people, they come after a while, they will move on to something else. And then so for those who are free to stay on, close to the camera and go back and
This one, I think it depends on the individual. if a person understands the Dhamma, then he will always keep the Dhamma close to him. Either every day he will study the suttas and meditate. But if a person does not have the affinity, you can advise him all you want, but he will not be able to follow it. So it depends on our blessings. That's why the Buddha says we have to cultivate our blessings. And some of these things we have no control. It's entirely up to the individual. If a person's time is not due, he can give 1,001 reasons why he has to be distracted in doing this and doing that.
In this sutta, the Buddha plays much about the Dhamma, and some people nowadays, even though they do not completely reject Dhamma as an important fact, but they say that we should be aware of the Dhamma because it can lead to the continual existence of one of the Arupa Dhamma, which is formless attachment to formless. Does this kind of saying has its root in the Buddha?
No, definitely not. Okay, shall we end here?